Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Steve is not in the car today, so this will not have a windy background noise. So I'm excited about that.
That's a good thing.
We're talking about occupancy stats today, which is one of our favorite topics to talk about because it really tells us at a glance how our business is doing. So we're going to do some slides to get on the same page with each other, and then we're going to go from there. Okay. First of all, to determine occupancy, for those who have never heard this before, it's taking the hours that the salon is open a week times the amount of chairs that you have that you could do business, not staffing, but the amount of chairs that could be doing hair, equals hair hours. Now, you could do the same for any division in your salon, whether it's spa rooms, whether it's nail stations, pedicure stations, as well as anything else that you might do beyond that. But this allows you to know, and we're going to concentrate today, for an example, on hair hours. How many hair hours are we available to the community? So the next slide is going to show us for a salon that's open 40 hours a week and they have 6 chairs, that would mean that they have 240 hair hours available every week in their business. Any questions on that or anything, you can send them in to Brian. Now, we're going to talk about the amount of guests in an example. So if we have 240 hair hours and we only have 120 guests a week, and the average in the industry that I've seen through looking at numbers is a guest is usually there, whether they're receiving upgrades or just haircuts, a base service, it averages out to about an hour per guest. So we're going to use this as this salon had 120 guests in it this week, and they had 240 possible hair hours. So they're at about 50% occupied. What does 50% occupied look like? And you know, we're going to be talking about, at the end, key performance indicators. This is one that hasn't gotten enough attention. This isn't one that we're talking about on a daily basis. This is a number that we just live with because it's based on, we have one, but we don't focus on it. Steve, can you elaborate on it from your learnings at the school too, please?
Well, I think this topic can be highly confused because, let's say for sake of example, in this example where you've got 6 stations, 6 chairs, you may be currently operating at 3 chairs or 4 chairs, and you have 1 or 2 hairdressers that are completely scheduled, in other words, 100% scheduled the time that they're there. And when you've got either yourself as an owner or another couple of people that are turning away guests potentially or have a waiting list, it's hard to
you're full.
It's hard to get your head around the fact that you're only at 50% occupancy. Yet the reality is that that's true because you have to look at the total possible and then say, where am I at compared to the total possible? And so this is a very valid stat. I remember one time we had a growing salon come to us, and they were asking, is it time for salon number 2? And it was because they were really slammed where they were. However, when we did the occupancy ratio, their occupancy was 35%. And so we went back and said, no, actually, it's really not time for you to add salon number 2. We want to see that occupancy ratio usually at 80% or better before we would suggest either expanding internally or adding a second salon. So
now the industry.
Go ahead, honey.
Go ahead, honey. The industry that probably has this as their key performance indicator, main conversation, first thing discussed, is hospitality. The hotel industry knows every single day, and they live by it forward, is how full are their rooms. And they make many decisions based on it. So when you check in, if you say, how full are you tonight, they'll say, we're 80% occupied tonight, or we're 100% committed tonight, or we're only at 40%. And that's when I usually ask for an upgrade because I know those rooms are available. So when you look at the fact that you've got industries that it's their number one thing they talk about. And I believe the airlines, too, they're looking at how full their planes are because they think about the possibility and how are they going to respond if they're not full? How are they going to respond to the extras maybe they have in place? And we're gonna talk about that later on. But this should become. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's two key differences, and in reality, you're right. Hospitality, every daily business decision is made based on occupancy and what their occupancy rate is, from ordering food to scheduling staff to scheduling their maintenance staff, their
housekeeping
yes. Staff, all of those things. Their restaurant staff, their staff,
even their spa staff.
All that is based on occupancy. Same thing with the airlines. The interesting thing about salons is that we certainly can't say that, partially because it's not something that's widely taught or widely looked at. But at the same time, we also have we're bringing new staff in. In other words, the staff has to be there prior to being fully scheduled. It's not one of those things that you become fully scheduled and then add a staff member. Because we have to train them, we have to get them ready. They have to be ready to accept a guest. So usually we're working with assistants. We're doing things to kind of maximize the scheduling percentage of the people that are already established. But we're also getting ready for the new. So you're generally going to have taking the new people into consideration. That's going to lower the overall occupancy ratio. We can't just say, okay, we're at 120 guests. There's 4 of us here. 2 of you need to go home because that's only enough guests for the 2 of us. Whereas in the restaurant industry, in the hotel business, they would definitely do that. We, for a short time, were working with a collection of salons, a salon chain, and they absolutely ran that way. They looked at their guest count by the hour, and they would release hourly people based on what their guest count was. And they had a whole chart to follow in that, and it helped them to maintain their profitability. The average independent salon doesn't have that
structure, right?
They don't have the structure because you're trying to grow. So,
well, I think that one thing that you did say that the salons could capitalize on is when you're seeing that occupancy ratio increase, it also tells you when you need to hire. It'll give you decision making. Occupancy will also tell you when maybe a second concierge or receptionist needs to be up front. So there are things that will help you respond, and we're going to talk about response time later on. So what does this look like in most cases? What does your current situation look like? And what's hard to talk about is the fact that I'm asking you for some questions that you probably have never even really thought about. You might have it during a business class, but you go back and say, okay, now what? What does this look like? I mean, if I have availability and my hours are at 35%, and I think, oh my gosh, I thought we were better than that. How do we respond to that? Once we figure out what this looks like, what are we going to do about it? One of the things is, and I've been on my high horse on this for probably 3 or 4 years with Steve, is you want to make sure that you're not open so many hours that you look empty. I mean, it's really something we have in common with everyone in the world is we all live on 24 hours and we all live on 7 days a week. Some people don't get 9 days and some people don't get 60 hours in a day, or some people don't get 14 hours in a day. It's all exactly the same. So when you look at how you respond, you're responding to something that your business should tell you how many hours you need to be open, what is prime time. You don't have to be to everything to all your staff, and you don't have to be everything to everyone in the community, but you have to look strong. And my worry is with an occupancy ratio, it changes from day to day. You can have one that Monday you could be at 15% occupied and think you're open. On Saturday you could be 80%. How do we get our business to look like Saturdays every single day in the eyes of the community? And the energy that will bring to the business you should never be satisfied with a 15% occupied day or a 25%. You might say, well, some of my customers really like the silence. To be honest with you, if you did a survey, most customers want to be in an atmosphere that's clicking, an atmosphere that absolutely is obvious what they do and who they do it for and who they do it with. So how do you respond? You have to make sure your scheduling and your hours match the energy that you're trying to create in your community. And that's a huge deal. When I think about businesses I go into, and coming from the hospitality background, we all know that people dine out more often on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So what did our other days look like? The restaurant wasn't closed Monday through Thursday, but we had to think differently Monday through Thursday. Mondays, we had less staff, but we didn't have closed sections. We still had to be open. Every dining room had to be open, so we didn't want tables that looked empty. We had to create more noise with what we had. How do we respond? We did different specials on Monday and Thursday to create traffic. We played different music, a little bit more relaxation Monday through Thursday because we could fuss over our guests a little bit longer because we didn't need to turn our tables as long. Maybe you feature treatments in your business Monday through Thursday. I'm not certain, but I know that you have to respond with the traffic you have. And so there's two things: create traffic, fill the occupancy ratio, and then respond to the needs of that traffic. So we're going to go into more of that. Steve, do you want to touch on this even in the schools from you managing traffic there?
Well, I think one of the things that we try and that we do in the schools is we start every day with a powwow. And going into that powwow, the team needs to know we have a team before we have a powwow on the clinic classroom floor. And what's done is we look at what our occupancy is for the morning, for the afternoon, and for night school, because we have different people on the clinic classroom floor in the morning versus in the afternoon versus in the evening. And so we know what kind of guest count or traffic count we have and what kind of service count we have going into each of those times. So literally, the respond, how do we respond is we then identify what are the services that are eligible for upgrade. And in our world, we consider every haircut upgradable. So we look at our haircut count, and then we set our goal based on our haircut count for upgrades, for upselling the menu. And then we, of course, perform against that. So it's a daily thing. Now we also, as the week goes on, and this is something that we talk about when we do our Millennium classes, you can look at that for today, or you can look at it for tomorrow, you can look at it for this week, and so on. And so on the first business day of the week, we'll look at it for that current day, and we'll look at it for this week. And so I want to know at the beginning of the week what my occupancy looks like. And then because I want to understand the habit of how far in advance our guest schedules. And so we'll watch guest count on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday for where we're going to come in at this week, and then we see how it performs against what a normal week is.
Okay, my whole point on this, at least you guys are talking about this, right? You're talking about it on a daily basis. We're talking about how much traffic we have. We should add what our occupancy is, where our opportunities are. What I like is they're talking about it. Now, they're talking about it in schools. We need to be talking about it daily in salons. We need to be able to know where we're running at. If you have a receptionist on staff, which we like to refer to as an administrative assistant to you in the business, this is a key number they should be communicating with you with. This is how occupied we are. This also tells you what can we do during downtime, because if I'm only going to be 15% occupied today and I've got 16 hours that aren't going to be used with a guest in the chair Are we planning for long lunches? Are we planning for different ways we can develop our people? So how do we respond is let the numbers talk to you and help you lead your team. Now, are you probably, if you're an active owner behind the chair, 80 to 100% occupied? Yes. You're funding the business in some cases. So you have to know that you've got to have things in place to what to do when someone's not occupied. Because if not, they'll just count it as downtime. And we all know that creates a terrible habit. It brings the energy of the business way down. Our noise footprint is awful at that point. Have you ever looked up as an owner and say, where is everybody? I'm the only one out here on the floor, and I'm the only one trying to create magic. And we have to understand that magic is 100% responsibility, even though we might only be 35% occupied. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now, let's do some examples. We're going to look at this per individual now. So we've got 40 hours that this chair is available. We're open 40 hours a week, one chair. That means this chair has 40 hours available each. So if I only have 15 guests this week in my chair, and I'm there 40 hours, I was only 37% full. So I was 63% empty. I would want to know and have them communicate with you, what did that 63% empty produce today? Were we out giving cards away? I mean, are we going out introducing ourselves to the community? Are we going out trying to find a guest to bring back into the salon? Are we going out and offering free haircuts or styles? What are we doing with that 63% empty? Because we've created couch potatoes in our salons if we don't give them a plan what to do when they don't have a guest.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we always say, they either need to be working on work or working on themselves. And working on themselves includes working on occupancy for their own chair.
And then what are the reasons they only have 15 guests? Is it their technical ability? So if their technical ability is not strong enough or their chairside manner is not strong enough, then they need to be assisting somebody else when they don't have a guest. When you don't have a guest, you're going to be assisting others. Because I need you to get absolutely engaged with how we do it as successful people. And even if you have to, as the owner, say, you don't have a guest, then you're with me. Because they have to be able to witness and stay in training until they fill up. Because 37% says something's wrong.
Agreed. And, I was meeting with some people yesterday, and they had a salon in Manhattan, 2 salons in Manhattan, one in Soho and one somewhere else. And they are relatively new in Manhattan, last 7 years, and what they found out was that they could bring people in pretty good numbers. And the example they gave is if they brought in 500 new people into their business, their social reputation went way down. So there was this thing that happened where generally we think, okay, the way you build business is bring in people, bring in people, bring in people. But if the quality isn't there, if the service, if the guest experience isn't there, if the environment for the guest to give feedback on how they could have had a wow experience, then you're going to go down socially, and that's everything in these days. What your Yelp review is, what the various social media comments about your salon are, and so we've got to pay attention to those things, along with looking at this. If I saw somebody that was 37% full, and oh, by the way, only one guest out of those 15 gave any kind of a review on them, that would be a 5-alarm fire to me in so many different ways. They might have gotten 1 5-star review, but they saw 15 or 20 guests, and so what does that mean? It means that there was literally, as this person said, nothing memorable about those other services.
Okay, So here we have 40 hours, 1 chair. Now she's got 5 more guests, and she's 20 guests a week divided by 40 hair hours, and she's 50% full. Now, what I want to get from you is do you think 15 guests or 20 guests, who's making more money? The 20 guests, probably, I'm hoping, in my example. Let's say that they are. We would think that because we only look at top dollar performance, we would think that this person, and we might even say everyone at $1,000 a week, they're stars in our business, but they're only 50% full. So we're rewarding something that really shouldn't be rewarded yet. We should reward the progress. But if we only do top dollar rewards, we're giving them permission not to push harder. Gosh, I'm hoping I'm making sense on that. Because if everyone's at 50% full, but they're your key people, that now becomes the standard to be recognized. Did I say that right, Steve? Because if you're only talking about top dollar, you could have all your top dollar people only be at 50% full. And that's not good.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, which is why we have the key metrics in business. This is one piece of the puzzle, but an important piece because it's highly overlooked. We don't really think about that. A lot of the time we're spending managing, the overall the spend and the frequency. But if we're really paying attention to frequency, then guess what? The guest count will
They'd
go
have
up.
more guests. That's right. Sorry, I just had a sip of coffee. Okay, so now watch what happens. The same 15 guests that were in a 40-hour, which was, I can't remember, is it 36? Let's go back. 15 guests in 40 hours is 37% full. Now we take it, and we're 15 guests, and we're open 60 hours a week, 1 chair. Now we know that someone's not working 60 hours a week, but that chair now, because we've dedicated 1 person to that chair, is only 25% full, and it's 75% empty. This is why when I look at businesses and say, you're open too many hours, they say, why? This is a schedule my staff needs to work. Well, it's not about just when your staff needs to work. It's about the energy and how you look in the business, in the community. And that's why when we're open 60 hours, our businesses look weaker than they actually are. We're just open too many hours to look stronger. So when you cut back and work 40 hours a week, meaning I love the schedule 12 to 8, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it gives you so much more opportunity to lead your people too, and Friday, Saturday, 8 to 4, if we can get that in place and have more of us work and energy. Why is Saturday such a great day in the business? And how are we going to get everyone to be on board to look like a Saturday every day? All right. And then this is the same chair. If somebody has 20 guests, even though they're making more money, they're only 33% full and 67% empty. So this is what a business can look like. Brian gave us a great visual on this. Here's 6 black chairs and a reception desk. We only have 2 people working in here, and because there's only 2 today, we don't even have a receptionist. Now we look at 6 people working and a receptionist. You can already see just visually, especially, great job on the colors, Brian, especially what does that look like? What does that sound like? Now you can start seeing people walking around. You can see people at the dispensary. Maybe there's a color bar. Maybe someone's in the wash house. There's assistants on staff that you can't even see. This business is talking hair in the community. This one is very quiet, and it doesn't have that visual impact. I know I can't give it to you with noise too, but this business even sounds quiet, moves quiet, and it's just different. It's different, and it's harder to create magic between this and this. Steve?
Well, that's exactly what you said. I mean, there's always this argument about busy versus slow, and some guests like it better when it's slow and whatnot. Reality is, I've never seen a restaurant when it's slow give the same quality of service or product, for that matter.
And I don't want to dine in a restaurant that nobody's there.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely true, and it's really kind of the same way in a salon. Truth be told, Tom Peters said a long time ago that when you walk into a business that gets it, you can feel it. You can feel something different about it.
You can smell it. You can hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard for that to happen when you've got 2 stations out of 6 that are busy, or 4 out of 10, or whatever the case may be when you're less than full staff. And that's why you know why Saturday gets busy like that, because partially at least because of the pace, because of the feel of the business. They know what to expect on a Saturday, and that creates energy. Business needs momentum, and momentum starts with energy.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. So here's our KPIs that we usually talk about all the time: dollar per guest, service dollar per guest, take-home dollar per guest. Those are all of our averages per service provider, as well as overall salon, reschedule percentage, and then the occupancy rate. I want you to add that as a KPI. It needs to start being something that we're known for talking about. It needs not to be something we talk about every 4 weeks. It has to be where we talk about it on a daily basis. That this is where we're at today, this is what we're going to do. No one wants to stand in the salon learning. They'd rather sit in the back versus learn. And this is going to create some different decision making if they have to be on the floor when they don't have a guest, I assure you. So when we look at this, we're going to start talking about all of our action items based on these. But if we're looking at our dollar per guest, all right, we're going to go through these really quick. The overall dollar per guest of a guest in the salon. Well, we've got a menu that, let's say the base haircut price starts at $30, and with our career path and earning our price increases, we go up to 30, then 40, then 50, 60, or 30, 35, 45, 50, whatever. If we have a whole menu and we're the price of the haircut and we don't sell any take-home, I mean, that dollar per guest, when we've got a menu of opportunity, should be something that it's obvious we're committed and we celebrate color, we celebrate style, we celebrate take-home, we celebrate our guests returning, we celebrate the fact that we want a repeat customer. That dollar per guest tells you that overall and per individual and even per division. The service dollar per guest is all the service upgrades. How often are we doing treatments? What can I do as far as color? What about relaxers? What about styling and specialty styling? It's saying at the top of our voice that we celebrate our house specials and our signature services in the salon. The take-home dollar per guest is, are we giving our professional recommendation? You know all of this, but the numbers are going to tell you if it's true. The rescheduling percentage, are we doing what we're supposed to do during the close and throughout the service, talking about the next time I need to see them? And then what is our occupancy rate? And I'm telling you that if 4 of them are in place, the occupancy rate is probably higher as well. Now let's talk about our action items for the remainder of the time. Okay. How do we go into having a plan to make every day look, smell, feel like a Saturday? Not that, oh, it's Saturday, put your big girl boots on. No, every day is Saturday. That's how strong we are. And when you can create that kind of flow, the days will go fast, the people will have fun together. I mean, negativity comes out of boredom. And, usually, we're going to focus on the wrong things or focus on our phones when we don't have action. So we've got to do that. The daily conversation is adding it to our daily conversation in powwow or how we're doing our morning huddle. And it might sound something like this. Good morning, everyone. Today we are 40% committed in the salon, so that means we have 60% opportunity. We're hoping to create some noise in here. We will be honoring same-day appointments. We will be honoring walk-ins. And our goal by the end of the day is to get at least 10 more points on that. Looking at the toolbox or the dashboards, we can see this number clearly. Make sure that your software supports your daily conversations with ease. So it should be able to see, and even if you have to ask for a modification, but you should be able to see at a glance what our occupancy is. Traffic analysis goes with occupancy, because if the guest isn't returning enough, what are the stats on that, Steve? Left on their own.
Left on their own, a guest will return in approximately 13 weeks. If they schedule a reservation today for their next visit, they'll return in approximately 5 weeks.
So I go with me on this. Because I have to be a color customer, not by choice, but by God, I have to get color every 3 weeks. That's 18 visits a year. In the every 6 weeks, I get a haircut. So 6 weeks cut, 18 every 3 weeks color. Do you have room for me? Have you made sure that you don't have too many guests per service provider, that there's room for me to be serviced 18 times a year? Because if not, I have to go somewhere else. So traffic analysis is making sure we have the right people with the right service provider and there's room for them to come in, not when it's Christmas time. There's room for them to be in the salon every 3 weeks. And standing appointments, having conversations about customers that have to be in there 3 weeks, when is the best time for them, really realizing that we have to manage their salon visits. They can't manage it or they wait too long. And when they wait too long, we start taking other guests, and when they do need us, there's not availability. So it is a constant battle if we're not managing the guest visits. Traffic analysis is absolutely, again, looking at every service provider at minimum on a quarterly basis, looking at the guests that are allocated to them, that they're responsible for servicing, and what does that service commitment look like with them? How often are they there? How many people have dropped off because we couldn't service them or for some other reason? We've got to manage the traffic. Concierge Focus, this should be the number one thing they're looking at and communicating with you, is the percentage of occupancy. And we have something that's been instituted into the schools, which I really like, and they have a clinic floor captain. And the clinic floor captain is just really expediting the traffic. They're making sure learning leaders are with the future professionals on the floor, and they're managing the traffic that's happening. And I like this because they're taught how to work the floor. They are taught how to identify needs. They're expediting the pace of the service. They know when to push. They know when to pull back a little bit. They know when to give room. But the biggest thing is they are in contact continuously with the front desk staff. And we don't have anyone, usually it's the owner that's seeing things and trying to get the attention of the front desk to respond, but Concierge Focus has to be taught that if you've got 2 people back there, teach one of them how to walk the floor and identify needs. It doesn't take that long. I used to love that job in a restaurant, is walk the floor, identify needs, walk the floor, identify needs, and teach your concierge staff to do that too. Working on pace, they're watching how that service is going along. Does the guest look happy? Does the hairdresser look happy? Does the service provider look happy? Do the assistants look engaged? Is there giddy up out on the floor? They need to, because they're the ones that are trained to look at all. The hairdressers are usually trained to look at one. And so they've got to have a very, very broad width in their view of the business. But that takes them walking the floor to identify things. To get occupancy up, you might want to run contests since it's something you might be talking about now that you've never talked about before. Create awards or ways we can put the spotlight on people that have figured out how to maximize the hours that they're in the salon, the best use of time to manage their career. Those are great ways to identify and move this number up. Steve, you want to address on those first three? I kind of didn't get you in.
Yeah, I just think I couldn't agree more with the walk the floor and look for things to improve in the moment, not things to improve next week, next month. But there's guests, and there's obviously a great opportunity to do this in the schools because there's so many more stations,
and so moving parts, right?
Yeah, when I walk the clinic floor, my most important thing is to look into the eyes of every guest that's being serviced, because that tells you, that tells me anyway, where the challenges are, who's been there too long, who's not comfortable, who isn't confident in their service provider. Things that are unique to schools, of course, but nonetheless, you can read all of that as you go through the floor, as you look at those being serviced. Another thing is you can look at those that are waiting in the waiting area. It tells you a real good idea what's going on in the business sometimes too, if that waiting area gets significantly backed up. And then, of course, the concierge focus, as Terry said, should absolutely be communicating with you occupancy and the guest response. Whether that is satisfaction. And I think that what we need to do is really think about, again, our dialogue and our scripting.
Good.
Is our concierge asking the right questions, or are they asking questions like they do in a restaurant when the manager makes his or her walk and says, "Is everything okay? You enjoying your dinner?" And the number of times where you say, "Oh yes, it's fine," and they move on. But the reality is many times it's not fine. So what's your concierge asking? Are they looking at the guest and saying, "Is there anything that we could have done better today?"
Absolutely.
Feedback, your feedback helps us to improve constantly. And I think that's so much more powerful than, "Is everything okay? Was your service okay today?" You're really coming off as disingenuous or insincere.
And generic. And very generic. Yeah. And you know what? When you say, there's things you could do. Say we're doing a heart-to-heart survey today, and you get down on one knee and you say to the guest, "Is there anything we could have had in place together that would have made this even more enjoyable for you today?" Mm-hmm. Heart-to-heart survey, eye-to-eye surveys, versus we're doing a survey on Facebook. We'd love if you would, and we're going to have a contest because, come on, that's okay too. But doing heart-to-heart, that's a big deal, and teaching your staff how to do that. Now, I have to go back and tell you that I can recall this memory up, and I think it's part of who made me what I am today. When we were growing up, my mom would volunteer our family to go door to door for any charitable organization, whether it was the Red Cross, Muscular Dystrophy, the Cancer Society, anyone. And she'd say, "Absolutely, we'll collect on behalf of the neighborhood." "Okay, good." And then she'd say, "Terry," it wasn't even who's going to do it in the family. She just would say, "Me. Here's the little thing you take, and you go door to door." If someone passed away in the neighborhood, my mom would say, "Terry, go to door and see if people want to donate or contribute, and we'll send flowers on behalf of the neighborhood." Terry. So I walk up to the door, and I'm telling you, at first, it was terrible. And I was scared to death, and you had the mean neighbors with the dark house. I didn't want to go there. They scared me half to death. But once I learned how to do it, and really it taught me how to learn all the neighbors, I had to introduce myself. I had to introduce the cause I was collecting for. And that created strength for me in my life to be able to lean in and get heart-to-heart with people. Yesterday I taught in a school, God love them. Some of them I mean, stood right out, but some of them never even shaken hands with people. So how do we teach people to lean in so we can create a connection with them? All of that's done heart to heart, eye to eye. It's not done through a text. So we create this, and we can even teach our staff how to do. We're doing heart-to-heart surveys today, or we're doing heart-to-heart idea day. And have fun with your customers and have them help you grow your staff, grow your business. So leadership has to insist, just like my mom insisted that I go door to door. I couldn't come back and say I went everywhere no one donated. She would know that that wouldn't be true. So I better be able to get home and she'd jingle the box and know that I did my job. And how often are you checking to see it, once you jiggle the box, that they did their job? Leadership has to be the example of how to lean in. Leadership has to say, these are the numbers I'm looking at. This is what we have to move towards, and we're going to make little shifts until we get there. I think that only stylists who have qualities of high occupancy should ever have assistant privileges. You should not be extending assistant privileges for people that are 15% occupied, 20% occupied. I mean, you might say you have assistant's privileges if you're 60% or more. You decide what that is. But remember, having someone service your guests with you is a privilege, and it's earned. It's not mandated. And if you talk to assistants who say, this person's on there sitting on their tail and I'm doing their shampoos, no, you have room. You have room. Do your own. Until you get to a point where we're double scheduling and whatever, you should not have assistant privileges whatsoever. Software. I think I touched on this, but your software must be able to identify this with ease. Figure out where it is, not where is that. No, we live by this number. And once again, ask for modifications from your software if you can't find it. All conversation in the salon must scream that we're talking about occupancy. A salon who has 30% occupancy cannot compete or compare with a salon who has 80%. You can't compete with it. You can't have the energy. Let me give you an example. Where I have my nails done, there are 30 pedicure chairs, 30 hair stations, or nail stations. This does, is it 1,800 guests a week, Steve?
I don't remember. I know you told me.
I think it's 1,800 guests a week in a nail salon. And the average guest check, I think, is $30. So let me just, I'm going to do that. Talk about something really quick while I just do this math really quick. I think it's 1,800.
Well, on this slide where it talks about software, again, I'm going to take a moment to recommend Zeezor. It's Zeezor. And it's a desktop program, and it's also a mobile program. So I look at it most frequently through my mobile phone. And what it is, it's real time. So meaning I can look at it and it shows what we've done so far today in the business. It also gives me all the key metrics. What I look at Zeezor it's the report engine for your software. I think that, for example, Millennium, you know that Terry and I have recommended it for years. We love it as software. And Zeezor gets all of its information from Millennium. And so it also works with many of the software packages that are out there, if not most. But it's just something that you have, and it allows you to. So how would it apply to occupancy? Well, if you know that your occupancy, you're open 10 hours today, and you have 6 chairs, so you know your max number is 60. You can, at the beginning of the day, you can look and see one of the metrics that it has is the number of people that are being serviced right now in the business and the number of people that are pending. So the combination of those two numbers is the number for the day. So in this case, let's say that I have 21 that are currently being serviced and 28 that are yet to be serviced. So if I was looking for a number of 60 to be at 100% occupied, and in this example, I've got 49. So it tells me how I'm performing against that. I hope that makes sense. But in addition, it gives the metrics that Terry had earlier, which is not just what's the total dollar that we've done, but also it shows you throughout the day how many guests have scheduled their future reservation, how many new clients are in the business, how many add-ons have been done. So remember, we talked about that in the morning. What are the add-on services or the upsells, upgrades? All of that is recorded throughout the day, not only on the salon level, but it's also recorded on the individual stylist level. So if I've got a stylist working a chair and they're working an 8-hour shift, and they would see 8 guests in an 8-hour shift, or they could potentially see 8 guests. Now I'm looking at them and saying, oh my God, they've only got 2 guests today. So what are they going to be working on? So it's in the moment. It's real time. It's live time. It does go back. I mean, it also gives you now week to date, month to date, year to date, but you can also change the date to go backwards if I wanted to see what happened on Saturday. So Zizor is an incredible tool. There's a one-time setup fee, and then there's a monthly fee regardless of the number of users that you have. So in many of our salons, they've got not only the salon owner or the manager, but they've also got the individual that's able to see their numbers throughout the day. So
that's powerful.
It's an incredible piece. Yeah. Okay,
so when you look at that now, my point on why these places. I mean, this isn't $1.8 million a year nail business, and they're really good. And they were closed Sunday before Memorial Day, and I needed my nails done, and I was taking my mother and my daughter, and so we had to find another place. Horrible. My mom said right there in the salon, "We will never be back here." She said it right out loud. I thought, oh my gosh, that's where I got it from. And you can't compete with a place that's prepared for volume. You can't compete with a place that has mastered doing 1,200 nail customers a week. And that, when you walk in there, everyone is having a good time having their nails done. They've created something very special. But they also are looking at, I mean, all these employees work 6 days a week, and they've created energy, and they're celebrating nails where most salons hate the category because they can't find help. Look at the difference there. One who hates it, one who's celebrating it, and you can't compete when all the things are in place. The next thing is I think about Michael Jordan or Larry Bird or Steph Curry taking 1,000 shots before they even play ball that day to get their body ready to be successful. How are you going to compete with someone who has that kind of discipline? When I decided when I wanted to be a cheerleader in 6th grade, I started doing 1,000 jumps a day. When it was time to try out, everyone knew I was going to make it, because you can't compete with someone that's willing to do 1,000 jumps when someone else just is thinking about, I'd like to be a cheerleader. No, this one's preparing to be one. So on a scale and energy level on 1 to 10, where are you? What is your visual energy level that you're putting out there? And if you think you're at about a 4 because your chairs are empty, or you don't have enough staff, or your receptionist, you've got to move that up to create that. Because the final thing, and then we want to open it up for questions, is what gets focused on gets done. We want you to focus on occupancy along with everything else, but this is a number that the whole team has to get behind. Why are you hiring? They sometimes say, why are you hiring? We're not full. I've got to create more energy in here because we're not full because we don't have energy. So everything is cause and effect, everything. And you've got to create the systems and the focus to create the outcomes that you want. All right, Brian, thank you so much, buddy. You came through huge again today for us. And can you open it and facilitate some questions for us, please?
You're very welcome. As of right now, there are no questions, but we can certainly take them all the way up until we close. And I will.
What time do we have?
We have 5 minutes left.
Oh, good. Steve, you've got to talk about something for 5 minutes. I mean, I think about this energy level sheet, and I was telling the students yesterday, I said I could never work in the morning if I was a hairdresser. I mean, I could probably do 2 mornings, but that's not my strength. And I'd be like, good morning, you want your hair done? Okay. But give me about noon to 8. I'd be your best noon to 8 employee. I love that time. Here we go. Let's jump into the day. This is my time. And I want to be there when I'm at my best, not when it's convenient. I know some people say they don't want to work nights, but if you're at your best during that time, I probably would work and love that 12 to 8, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and that 8 to 4 on Friday and Saturday. I'm going to have to work with people like Tracy from the gallery that's going to make me laugh, she and Vicki. I'd have to work with Stephanie Kachowski. I'd have to work with Tina Salerno because I'd have to be bookended by energy people. Because Fridays and Saturdays, I'm going to need and borrow other people's energy until mine kicks into place. And do you have those kind of people on staff that can bring it up a notch for you when you need it? And we're going to make every day a Saturday as we grow people. And that should be a focus for us when we're hiring too, is we want every day to be like a Saturday in our business. Brian, anything? Are they really thinking hard today or what?
I think so. We're still not no
Any
questions.
comments then? How about comments? What do they think of this topic? Does it scare them, or are they understanding that this is something that they have to focus on? And it's not easy, especially when you're behind the chair. Stephen Allen?
Well, again, I think that I want to take this time then and just update people with what's the most recent books that I have downloaded from.
Oh, did you see what I bought? Did you see what I bought in my purse? I started it on the airplane. Yeah, I purchased the presents. And Steve was talking to me about it, and it's a word I've been using. And presence. Do you have presence? Oh, I can finish now, honey. I'll just use this book. This book is another book I'm reading called No Excuses. Another one is, but presence is, does your business have presence? Do your employees have presence? Have you learned how to create presence so you're not just part of the atmosphere, scenery, but you create, your energy gives presence. And it's something I want to work on with our staff too. They all are very, very smart. But sometimes their silence makes it appear that there's no presence. And they have to lean in and give their opinion, even if it's, this is what I'm thinking about when I hear this topic. You've got to put your voice out there, your energy, your service, your heart, your eyes. You've got to connect with people. You have to be the first one to lean in. Presence isn't easy for shy people, but it can be a learned trait if they have a coach helping them. And some of our staff, and I said this to the school students yesterday, I said, some of you may be thinking that this is a technical career, but it's a presence career. This job is entertainment. This job is chairside manner. And oh, by the way, we cut hair, and we color hair, and we have artistic expertise. Presence is really understanding that it's your responsibility to change the air pressure that's surrounding that guest because you're in it. You're going to fuss over them. You're going to make it about them. And it's very much like shopping with your best friend. It's really, or having lunch with your best friend. Energy, there's something really special and natural about it. That's what you need to create with your customers. Mm-hmm. Sorry, honey, I had to jump in because you recommended the book, and it's a fun read. I'm really enjoying it. Brian, is that our time up?
We do actually have one comment from Kathy McCarthy.
Okay.
She said, very helpful for us. We have been looking at it, but have not focused on it.
Great. Well, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great month, and we'll